Hey, what's going on guys, Khraze here, welcome back to some more Outriders news and updates. Let's talk about the restoration process, okay? Because I've seen comments, I've seen talks online, and well, there's two categories of people. Some of them are pretty happy with the restoration, the fact that they're getting god rolls and whatnot, or at least getting some of their items back, but there's also players who are pretty dissatisfied by the way People Can Fly is handling this entire process. So we will talk about that, new updates from the team, as well as putting a few things into perspective when it comes to the end game. So let's jump right into it. So I want to clarify a little bit more on how the restoration process works. As I've said yesterday, they pretty much split the player base into three groups, group A, B, and C, and the restoration process is going to go a little bit different for each of the groups, with group A being the most affected number of people, the ones that also lost access to their characters, so they will get compensated the most. Then there's like group B, which gets only up to 20 legendaries because they also were capable of playing, and then group C, which is the rest of us that never got affected by any inventory wipe issues, so as a result we aren't getting any restoration since there's nothing to restore in the first place. But here is where it becomes a bit problematic, and some of these measures, even though they are blanket measures which are meant to pretty much cover as much of the player base as possible, they might still cause a few issues with remote cases where people might not get compensated to the level that they were before the wipe. So let me give you an example with group A, which is going to be the most compensated. So going over this explanation here quickly, pretty much they mentioned that in their database they can tell which player has an invalid inventory by simply checking whether they have an item in all of their equipment slots. So basically here is how it goes. When you equip gear on your character, some of the slots can no longer be taken down or unequipped. This is mostly true with the weapons, but they made a small mistake right here mentioning that it's impossible to sell or dismantle any equipped item. That is not true. It only applies to weapons, not to armors. Armors can still be taken down, but they're essentially saying that as long as you have something equipped and then everything is gone, they can conclusively tell that that means you were affected by this bug, which means that you qualify for a fix, and in this case to restore all of your equipped items. Fortunately enough, because of their analytics, they can also see which items were equipped in your inventory at the time of the loss. So this means the rarity, the level, if it was legendary or not, and so on and so forth. But here is where it kind of brings the first issue. Additionally, because we can conclusively identify these characters as having been wiped, we can grant them a total of 20 previously acquired items that were in their inventory, with of course the prioritization based on rarity descending from epic, and of course based on date acquired. So essentially the first items of the highest quality will be the first ones restored, and then so on and so forth. If you happen to be in this category, then this is the best case scenario, because not only are you getting all of your legendaries back, which is a guarantee, but also those additional 20 items on top, most of which are likely going to be of epic quality, but depending when and how you acquired them, it might also include a few of the rares as well. There is only one small issue, which is with, I assume, a small number of people, and that is if they had more than 20 useful epics or rares. Maybe some of you kept a few of these, stockpiling them, maybe either for I'm not sure, additional builds, maybe also keeping something for an anomaly build, or maybe keeping a few epics or rares here and there to further upgrade so that you can get better stat rolls on them, because the current ones that you had maybe weren't that great. I believe that if you already get god rolls anyway in this situation, it should not affect you in any noticeable way whatsoever, or the impact should be minimal. But the same thing cannot be said about group B, which is also why I made this video. In group B it becomes even more problematic, because in this case you get even less rewards, even less restoration. Mainly the principle here goes as follows. follows. So essentially Group B was the players that, even though they got an inventory wipe, they were able to continue to play for one reason or another, which theoretically means they had access again to the game, so as a result they at least refarmed some of their gear back. In the case of Group B, you only get legendaries restored again up to the total of 20, for a reason that I will mention in just a little bit. It makes sense, but again it can affect a ton of people and it will make a lot of people mad. So essentially they start from the premise that analytics tell them if players acquired an item, and they also tell them if that item was dismantled. If it was not dismantled but it's missing from the inventory, then it means from their perspective that they lost it with the inventory wiped. As a result, they will begin the restoration process on that. However, while our analytics are proving extremely helpful, they do not track every single interaction with an item. So essentially what this means is that this method that they're using to identify the lost items for the Group B in fact may also identify the same lost gear or no longer present gear regardless of rarity, even for players in Group C, which is the rest of the population, which supposedly is the one that shouldn't be affected by any restoration. So this means that they have to limit the Group B restoration just to legendary items. So any player who has previously had but did not dismantle a legendary item will have them restored even if the character did not encounter an inventory wipe. Like in Group C, you can immediately sell the item if you choose to do so, or keep it, you can do whatever you want with it. But in order to not impact Group C, each character not in Group A will therefore only have a maximum of 20 legendaries restored. Again, raising the same issue that Group A had, but another one on top, which is the fact that you also lose the epics or the supposed rares. Now for the legendaries, fortunately enough, it was confirmed that if you did manage to dismantle it, for example, you did get a mod out of it and the mods were not affected by the wipe. So in that situation, if you get the same item back, it's not gonna, well, do any difference for you unless you really want to use the gun itself. Now if you do have a gun or did have a gun that was of legendary quality, like how many people have because they use legendary weapons, and you lost it, this means that unless it's in those 20 legendaries, it's going to pretty much suck for you, because that means you kinda lost it. Now from the looks of it, they might be able to prevent that, but they also prioritize it in the order of the date it was acquired. So let's say your characters or your accounts looked something like this before the wipe. You had at least like 30, 40 or even 60 legendaries just sitting over there, but you only get 20 restored. What happens if the 20 legendaries that are getting restored do not contain that one legendary piece that you were actually using on your build in the first place? That is one of the first issues that doesn't seem to be addressed. Second of all, even though this only covers legendaries, many people are pretty much up in arms because it also doesn't cover their epics and lost rares. If you're like right now in under CT15 or even in CT15 but didn't manage to fully complete your build, you're still likely rolling with epic armor, and that epic armor might have had perfect god rolls on it, especially maybe for your build or maybe for your class, or maybe you were lucky with the mod distribution. You're not getting any of that back, which is why many people are, rightfully so, getting angry at the way the developers are handling this. And this basically brings us to the two sides of the coin. Do you risk pissing off Group B, which is essentially just a small group of people, or do you risk pissing off Group C, which is essentially the rest of the player base? But that is the big question right here. Now personally, my big question is actually a little bit different, and that is, if you are in Group C, would you mind if you just got a bunch of god roll items on your character? Would that ruin the experience for you, like the hunt for your own personal items? If not, let me know in the comment section down below. If yes, also let me know down below personally if I was still in the process of getting my gear and putting my own work into it, and then I would for some reason receive god roll items in my inventory. That would steal away some of the fun that I had in hunting that gear in the first place, and I could see how some players might put off the game faster as a result of that. So in this case, from a business point of view, it makes more sense to sacrifice a little bit of the group B so that the majority of the player base can continue unaffected. But again, let me know what your opinion is down below. Now, on a final note, and just to put things into perspective, I just want to show you how many people actually even got into the end game in the first place, and the numbers are extremely low. Like what you're seeing on YouTube and in the comments and even on Reddit is the very small minority. Now, you can check this on Xbox, PlayStation, and even Steam. I'm not sure about Stadia and whatnot, but basically on Steam, only 10% of the entire player base even got the true potential achievement, which is crafting to improve the rarity of 15 items. If you play expeditions, that's literally just a few hours in lower CTs, or like just a few, like an hour basically in normal CTs, because you're constantly improving items over there, trying to overcome the challenge and make your build better. So 15 items is something that you're doing at a bare minimum, yet only 10% of the player base completed that. You can even also go ahead and check out how many people like even reached level 30. I believe that at least on the consoles and at least on this achievement tracker, less than 44% of the player base even reached level 30 in the first place. So like over half of the player base is still at a low level at the current time, which is why it makes sense for People Can Fly to be very careful how they affect the experience of the majority of the player base who is still continuing to play almost completely unaffected. So I can get why they went with this complicated approach, but again, you can leave your comments down below because I really want to see your opinion. This is it, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.